Good morning, everyone. Before I take a few questions, I want to offer a few comments on this morning's vote of the Board of Estimates to approve the final settlement resolving all potential civil liabilities in the tragic death of Mr. Freddie Gray. Let me begin by emphasizing that the decision to settle the civil claims is completely unrelated to the criminal case the 6 officers currently face. The city's decision to settle the civil case should not be interpreted as passing any judgment on guilt or innocence of the officers. This settlement is about making the right fiscal decision for the city of Baltimore. Like every other proposed settlement of a civil claim, we must weigh the potential financial costs of defending the lawsuit in court and the potential exposure to the citizens of Baltimore if we are unsuccessful in court. And for that matter, if we are successful in court. In this case, faced with the prospect of significant legal expenses involved in an extended federal lawsuit, as well as the potential liability that could come with an unfavorable jury verdict, our city's attorneys came to the conclusion that the $6.4 million settlement is in the best interest of protecting taxpayers. I ultimately agreed with that recommendation. In looking at the settlement, I acknowledge that it is relatively unusual for the city to choose to settle a civil claim involving alleged police misconduct prior to the resolution of a criminal case. But in the limited number of cases involving unique or extraordinary circumstances, the city has made the decision to settle civil liability prior to the final adjudication of criminal charges. The purpose of the civil settlement is to bring an important measure of closure to the Gray family, to the community, and to the city, and to avoid years and years of protracted civil litigation and the potential harm to the community and the divisiveness which might result. By reaching a civil settlement now, we avoid the continuing anxiety and distraction of more legal procedures going on for years after the 6 criminal trials are over, both for the 6 officers, but as well as we eliminate that anxiety and distraction for the community, for the city as a whole. To cover the costs of this settlement, more than sufficient funds are available entirely from assured recoveries and cost savings in unrelated litigation. Despite the specific high-profile despite this high-profile civil settlement, it's important to point out the overall gains that we have made by improving community-police relations. We've seen reductions in the number of complaints alleging police misconduct and police discourtesy, as well as reductions in the number of lawsuits filed against the city. And on a final note, I again want to extend my most sincere condolences to the family of Mr. Freddie Gray. I realize that money cannot bring back the loss of your son, your brother, your loved ones, but I hope that this settlement will bring some measure of closure to his family and to his friends. I'll open it up for questions.
How long did it take for the settlement to be negotiated?
I don't know the specific amount of days, but the settlement negotiations have been going on for some months.
Was there a threat of federal litigation? Is that why you acted so quickly?
Absolutely.
What exactly triggered negotiations?
The notification that there was intended federal litigation.
Did any conversations take place regarding the possible impact this decision might have on tomorrow's motions hearing for a change of venue for these officers?
Did we discuss and consider that? Yes, we did.
To what extent? What were your
Evaluate
concerns?
that.
Can you put up the microphone, Mr. Nielsen, please?
Georgia, so we evaluated that.
Can you come to the microphone?
So yes, that was an issue that was discussed, considered. We went to great pains in our remarks, as did the mayor in her remarks, to make it plain that the settlement of the civil case bears no relationship to the issues that are before the court in the criminal proceedings.
Why now, this moment?
Well, because discussions began actually 3.5 months ago, and they concluded in the latter part of August. So we had reached an agreement by then. It involved the process of then putting together a settlement agreement. And considering the option of delaying by another couple of weeks, I mean, there's never a good time in a case which has pending motions and now 6 trials back to back. So we considered and discussed among ourselves an option of delaying the settlement for 10 days. And the result clearly would have been the judge would decide whatever he's going to decide in the next few days on venue. And if he decided not to move venue, and we settle this case 10 days from now, the defense lawyers would be back arguing change of venue, and the whole discussion would be about the impact of this action on venue rather than focusing on the impact of the publicity back in the spring.
What was the opening figure that the city offered?
I'm not going to get into that. That gets into discussions between the counsel for the city and the family, which are confidential.
Madam Mayor, the FOP tweeted yesterday that news of this settlement would do damage to the relationship between the officers and the city government. Did you have any comment about that?
Say that again?
The FOP, in a statement, Gene Ryan, the president, said that news of the settlement would do damage to the relationship that is in the process of being restored between police officers and city government.
So, you know, Gene's statements continue to baffle me, because what this settlement does is remove any liability from, civil liability from the 6 officers. What this does is to ensure that at the end of the criminal trial, it is the end for those officers, whether, you know, whatever the outcome of the trial is, that they know that on the other side of the litigation, that there will be closure. And if I'm Gene Ryan and believe in my heart that these officers are innocent, then I would want the entire thing to be, I would have confidence that at the end of the trial, my officers would be found innocent and this whole thing would be over. And to that, I would say thank you. But he can't do that. Instead, he's trying to suggest that by covering these officers civilly, that is in some way a disservice. If any of the officers believe that they have been negatively impacted, they can opt out of this settlement and face civil liabilities individually.
Mayor, the Gray family has, as I understand it, asked for more than just money. They want to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else in that neighborhood. They've endorsed the idea of body cameras quickly and in large numbers in the Western District. Is that something your administration will try to do in the months ahead?
We've been in a lot of conversations with the Grace family's attorneys about making sure that something like this doesn't happen, but also doing the important work of improving the relationship between the community and the police, and doing that in a way that says, you know, that acknowledges, I have always been clear that our department needs to be reformed, that we have challenges that we need to overcome. That's why I took the step to ask the Department of Justice through the COPS office to participate with us in a collaborative review so we could go over our community policing strategies and get direct recommendations from the COPS office on how we can improve our community policing. When I believed that we needed more, I did the very unusual step. I don't know of another jurisdiction that asked the Department of Justice, asked the Attorney General to initiate a patterns and practice review. I did that because I'm determined to make this better in our city, to improve accountability, to improve the way the police department performs, and to ensure that we're doing the work to bridge that gap between the community and the police. That work is important, and that work will continue. With respect to body cameras, the Mr. Gray's family and their attorneys understand that those cameras are coming, and they were assured that the pilot program will start in the Western District.
When will that start then?
as soon as possible. The challenge is that there's this notion that you can go to Home Depot and buy body cameras and then you're done. It's a complicated system to put in place that requires a pilot program. We're having a pilot program. In most jurisdictions our size are larger, the pilot program's at least 6 months. But I know how important it is to get this done. So we've truncated that pilot to just 2 months so we can get these on the street earlier. There's only so much you can do to cut the corners and cut out the process without putting the program at jeopardy. We want to make sure that we get it right for the people of Baltimore. And we've seen in other jurisdictions, and I'm sure you've reported in other jurisdictions, where they've rushed to implement and the public has paid the price. I want to ensure that we're getting it right.
Mayor, going forward, does this set a precedent, considering that what you're trying to do is avoid a federal civil rights lawsuit? Is that what's the concern and what's the precedent you may be setting in making this settlement, in this arrangement, to avoid all of that in cases going forward of alleged police misconduct?
I don't. So the initial part of your question is trying to avoid a federal lawsuit. I don't know if that is an accurate depiction of what we intend with the pattern. You're talking about the patterns and practice investigation.
I'm talking about what Mr. Ralph.
Oh, then I will let him. Sorry.
Which is the civil
Sorry.
rights statute.
Sure. My point about bringing about the 1983 claim is that the city's cap does not apply in those cases. So this is uncapped liability. However, your question about making this some kind of pattern, no. Look, we look at cases on a case-by-case basis. We know, and I mentioned the other claims where there were verdicts that exceeded this settlement. So we look at these cases on a case-by-case basis. This case is certainly not an ordinary case. So, we have to look at the facts of each case and the legal issues in each case. We have lots of cases, and we view those cases for their merits, and we make a determination. So there's no precedent. These are all fact specific.
Just to clarify my question is, just to kind of cut to the chase, aren't you sending a message to lawyers and plaintiffs, aha, you want to get money out of them, just go threaten to file a federal civil rights lawsuit? No.
Look, first of all, federal court is not some place that anybody could just walk in off the street and make a claim. Your claims are going to be tested. Federal court is what we call serious court. You have to have the financial means to actually bring a case, and you have to have a factual and legal basis for bringing it. So anybody could do anything. We'll view the merits of that and make a determination whether or not this is a claim that should be resolved early or not. We litigate many of these cases and are successful. As I said in the Board of Estimates today, because of the specific factual disputes in this case, it was not one that we felt was likely susceptible to a motion to dismiss. But we resolve a lot of these on motion. But in this mediation, in this claim, we actually utilized a former federal judge for just that purpose. The purpose of helping both sides evaluating the risks in the case.
How did you
One
reach
more.
the $6.4 million amount? How was that determined?
I'm sorry, the question was, how did we get to 6.4
How
million?
did you determine the $6.4 million?
After a lot of conversation over 3.5 months and looking at our history of settlements, looking at other settlements in other jurisdictions recently, including the New York settlement, which while it's been written about as a $5.9 million settlement, actually was an 8-figure or approximately $10 million settlement. That's the Stranglehold case in New York. We had, just before I became city solicitor, a $6 million settlement in a van case involving a plaintiff who was rendered a quadriplegic. So, we looked at all of those things, and we looked at the extraordinary circumstances, which truly are unique in this case, if you think about it. It was I won't say it was a perfect storm, but it was the kind of situation that we don't think is likely to repeat itself. Sure, folks will say, well, the family of Freddie Gray got $6 million, so I want my $6 million, so we'll hear some of that. But, we're big boys and girls, and we can distinguish between this case and the cases of the future. And we will continue to settle cases favorably to the city. We will continue to win, as we have in the past, more than half of the cases that are brought involving excess force. And I don't think that this settlement is going to have a significant impact going forward.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.